Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick. How are you guys? I am pumped to finally do this. We finally get a chance to talk about some X-Wing 2nd Edition lists. As always guys, if you want me to have a chat about your lists on the channel, post in the comment section below. Just a quick heads up to you guys, if you could do me a huge favour with the comments you're leaving, if you could leave the costings on everything for the ship totals and all the upgrade cards and all that kind of stuff, that'd be really handy because we don't have a reference on the cards for their costings. It makes it easier for me when I'm organising this kind of stuff. I don't have to keep checking the documents whatsoever. Also, a few of you commented with images and links to images and that kind of stuff. It really is best if you just copy in the text. Anyway, with that all out of the way, let's talk about some X-Wing 2nd Edition lists. I'm so hyped to do this. First of all, we have a list here by Alex Klein. We have Boba Fett alongside Lando Calrissian in the Millennium Falcon with the escape craft with L337. Boba Fett has Fearless Proton Rockets, Seasoned Navigator, Inertial Dampeners, Marauder, Veteran Tail Gunner. Lando has 000, BT-1, Contraband Cybernetics, and Lando's Millennium Falcon. L337 doesn't have any upgrades. So yes, first of all, I'm just going to say for this video, for the start of everything we're doing here, I'm basically picking things that I think are going to be very interesting moving in the 2nd edition. Both the Millennium Falcon and the Firesprayer and the Scum faction look absolutely dope. Boba Fett, Lando Calrissian is a combination which I think is pretty solid. We could actually get Han Solo in this. Now, Alex, I think you may have made an error when you sent this to me. I did double check the costings here. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but it appears that your list actually cost 190, not 200. So you could probably upgrade Lando to Han Solo and do all that kind of stuff. It is all possible. But let's say for argument's sake, you want to do Lando and Boba and assess the list based on that alone. First of all, Contraband Cybernetics. Let's get one on Boba Fett. It's worth 5 points. It's a great use of some of those remaining points. Goes up to 195. And you could just leave it at that in terms of getting an initiative bid. A 5-point bid, you have an initiative 5 ship, so that make a lot of sense. And let's talk about Boba Fett first, because if we put on Contraband Cybernetics, it just further enables this strategy that I'm seeing here. I love the combination of Seasoned Navigator, Inertial Dampeners, Marauder, and Veteran Tail Gunner all together. Because basically with Veteran Tail Gunner, you have a very high upside if you manage to catch a ship inside your forward and rear firing arc. And all these other cards are sort of enabling that. Marauder being the card that allows you to do that in the first place. But Seasoned Navigator and Inertial Dampeners basically means you go, right, come to activate Boba Fett during the activation phase at Initiative 5. Very high chance that he'll be the last ship to fly. And you flip your dial up, you go, okay, do I want to do a full stop? Do I want to execute this maneuver and then do a boost? Or do I want to use Seasoned Navigator and change the direction? So you're giving yourself a lot of different options. And hopefully in most games you play, that will allow you to get a Veteran Tail Gunner double shot. And that's worth a lot. Extra attacks are always a fantastic thing in X-Wing. Plus, if we have Contraband Cybernetics on there, it means you can use Seasoned Navigator and then boost afterwards and give yourself a modified attack. There's a lot of potency out of Contraband Cybernetics. And I made this comment before because Contraband Cybernetics is way more powerful than it used to be because it doesn't give your ship a stress, but in turn it's also a lot more expensive. I generally want to put it on the more expensive ships, not like the Kirax fighters and the Z95s like I did in 1st edition. So for both of these platforms, it makes a lot of sense. Fearlessness is a really fun upgrade with Boba Fett, especially considering he now has native white boosts. It just makes so much sense to put on this platform. Proton rockets, I'm not so sure about. Look, it's added upside if you can't think of anything else to put the points on, but I think there are probably better ways in order to use this. Let me put this to you, Alex. I'm looking specifically at the crew and gunner options, and I think there is another way we could build this out that actually works really well with proton rockets. And that's taking off those options and putting on Han Solo and Lando Calrissian. Because if we have Han, you're going to give yourself focuses pretty consistently, which is great on Boba Fett again because he has white boosts. It means he can boost into range 1 and still get modified shots. And Lando also gives those focus tokens way more flexibility. Say you shoot those 5 dice with a proton rocket and you have Lando, you go hit focus, miss, miss, miss. you'd probably rather just re-roll 2 dice than convert those focus results, for example. He gives you a lot of flexibility off those focus tokens. Plus, with Proton Rockets on Boba Fett, you can get a re-roll at range 1, which is awesome. Unfortunately, it doesn't work with Fearless. So I don't think this archetype really gels together perfectly. If you want to stick with this kind of build, honestly, I just drop off Proton Rockets. I don't think it's doing what you want it to be doing in this. I think there are better options elsewhere to spend the points. Let's move down to Lando. And once again, I really like the concept here. On the Lando pilot with 000, BT-1, and Lando's Millennium Falcon, it all makes a lot of sense because you can leverage your dice over your opponent's dice. You're giving yourselves the internal synergy of being able to stress out your opponent. However, do bear in mind that your opponent can just allow you to take calculate tokens. However, that is a good thing because Lando gives your ship rerolls. You're going to see focus results quite consistently on your attack dice, so it still works pretty well. Just bear in mind that when your opponent does that, you are basically not getting any value out of BT-1, which does hurt a bit. Having said that, there's incidental stress in 2nd edition, so it's not totally lost if 000 does not give your opponent stress. I will say Contraband Cybernetics, a really cool upgrade here. It's going to do you well no matter what, but I don't see Lando wanting to take too much stress, and at the times that he does by using his ability, he's going to want to clear it anyway straight away in order to use it again. I would actually recommend you have a look at Rigged Cargo Chute here instead. Getting the stress on your opponent is going to help you enable BT-1, enable the Lando's Millennium Falcon title. Just get a bit more value out of all that stuff. Plus, as I previously mentioned, it's a pretty decent upgrade card because it's now currently the only thing that you can drop as an action during the activation phase. And yeah, L337, pretty much a no-brainer on Lando. The fact that you can improve the quality of his dial lets him use his ability over and over again. Looks pretty straightforward. I love the concept of these two parts together. I think a little bit of tweaking is probably required in some parts of this list, but yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. I personally intend to try Lando and Boba in the early stages of 2nd edition. Let's move on to another list. This one's by Omnihydra. This is the Rebel list we're going to have a look at today. And this is a Dash +1 list. Dash is something I'm very, very interested in. Looking the best ways to use the pilot, what kind of wingman we want to put beside him. I think Dash Luke is going to be a very potent thing moving forward. It's one of those lists that I look at and go, this could be a massive powerhouse in the early meta. What you've got here is a Kyle Katarn build alongside Dash Rendar. Dash has Trick Shot, Lando Calrissian, the Rebel version, Bistan, Hull Upgrade, and Outrider. Kyle has Trick Shot, Perceptive Co-Pilot, and Moldy Crow. And first of all, let's just talk about that Kyle build, because I don't think there's much to say here. It all seems very good and synergistic. Moldy Crow not only makes your attacks better, it lets you hoard those focus tokens to pass off to Dash later on. It also gives you another firing arc, meaning that you have the forward firing arc and wherever the turret's facing in order to use Kyle's ability. Perceptive Co-Pilot lets him stack more focus tokens more easily. I don't know if we need Perceptive Co-Pilot and Moldy Crow. I will say there might be an argument just to drop Perceptive Co-Pilot, rely on the fact that you can hoard the focus tokens early. But having said that, you can do this on the fly. You could lose all your focus tokens and replenish them very quickly. So there's an argument for and against that there. And Trick Shot's just a nice value card. It's only 1 point. Plus you're attacking with a turret. So there's a good chance you can basically fire over rocks a lot more easily. You probably don't want to look at things like Crack Shot on something that's using a turret, even if it does have a forward firing arc. Moving on to Dash. This looks like a lot of fun. First of all, Bistan's really cool here, and you were saying in your comment when you left it that the idea here was to use a Dash Bistan platform and use Kyle in order to better enable Bistan, and I really like that thinking. That's just a really, really cool idea. Also, to go along with Trick Shot this time, we have the Outrider title, which also gets an added benefit if you shoot obstructed. And it even further empowers Dash to get rid of tokens, which means he can get rid of potentially jam tokens, which could have prevented him from getting focus tokens. Again, helping things get freed up for Bistan. Lando's cool here, but I don't think he has really enough upside in terms of options. Because basically, if you roll double blank, your opponent's always going to give you focus tokens. Because your list already gives you a lot of focus tokens, and one more doesn't give you a lot of upsides. Just be aware of that. And I'm not too certain we really need Hull Upgrade in this list. Dash in itself is already a very powerful ship that can maneuver around and really troll your opponent. So you're probably better off just trying not to get hit most of the time, as Dash does in first edition. And if you take it off, you give yourself a points bid, and Dash is initiative 5, so a bid will matter in this case. So I think that's the only change I'd make, just take off that hull upgrade. Apart from that, looks really good. The question is whether Dash really wants a support ship next to him, or whether he wants another heavy hitter like Luke. It might simply be a case of Dash wants another heavy hitter so you can get as much attacks on your opponents as possible. Having said that, Kyle does have a 3 dice primary and trick shot, so he's not totally inept in terms of power level. I just think it's worth comparing this to something like Luke Skywalker and deciding, hey, is that going to blow up my opponent's ships better, or is it better to have a support role alongside Dash? It's a question we have to ask, and I think a lot of people are going to test it because Dash is one of these things which people are getting really excited for moving forward. Okay, one last list, the Empire list for this week by Christopher Patrick. This has Lieutenant Sai with a support role alongside 4 TIE fighters. Sai has Admiral Sloan as a crew. The TIE fighters are Howrunner with Juke and Stealth Device, Del Miko, Gideon Hask, and Sayan Marana. And I will say it's sad not to see Iden Vasio alongside the rest of Inferno Squadron, but what we've done here is we've gone for a more aggressive 4 TIE fighter build. And I think that makes a lot of sense. But I do question what's going on with the support role here, because we have Lieutenant Sai, which for beginners doesn't really gel well in my eyes. I really feel like if you were going to use something like Lieutenant Sai, we need to have him fly alongside other things that are going to better benefit from his ability. Basically, Lieutenant Sai gets a focus token if you coordinate a focus to your TIE fighters. And really, I don't know how often we're going to want to coordinate a focus. I can see barrel roll in particular being a much more desirable thing to do. And from that point of view, I think there are probably better options. Plus, here's an extra points investment. You can cut down the points, go for like an Omicron group pilot, even go for a TIE Reaper. There's some good options there and save a few points. I just think that's probably where this wants to be. Plus Admiral Sloan. Now, I like Admiral Sloan a lot, but I will say her power level goes up the more ships she is supporting or commanding, if you will. Basically, every time one of your ships gets destroyed, that opponent gets 2 stress tokens. And then when your friendlies are attacking one of your opponent's ships with stress tokens, they get to reroll attack dice. And that's fantastic if you have a whole swarm of Academy pilots. But if you have like 4 decent-ish pilots, you probably don't want to die too frequently. I don't know if Admiral Sloan's quite the right choice, especially considering she costs the same as Sienna Ree. Now, Sienna Ree looks like a fantastic option against 4 high-priority TIE fighters. It means every time they do a barrel roll, they can rotate 90 degrees and face the opponent, which just seems really, really good. And then you can think about what platform she's on, maybe put her on a TIE Reaper. There's a few other options here. I just don't think Lieutenant Sai and Admiral Sloan is really what we're looking at. However, purely as a concept, if we're looking at sort of 2.0 power bases or commander races, like a medium swarm commander build, it's kind of like halfway between a swarm and a power base list from first edition. And I really like the concept. And the 4 TIE fighters together just look really, really solid. I will say we have a 1-point bid here, and there's an obvious 1 point in my eyes on this list that you could be using, and that's marksmanship on Sayan Marana. Basically, this means you can better enable crits for that TIE fighter pilot, and then you can spend the crit to get damage across, and then you're enabling the other 2 TIE fighters. Just keep in mind with this list, if you're not actively damaging your opponent quickly, it means those other 2 TIE fighters are not getting any value out of their ability, and that does hurt. So I think just enabling Sayan Marana just a little bit more is a good idea. Plus, I like the inclusion of Howrunner. The fact that you're getting better attacks is again going to help you get across the damage and make sure you're enabling this ability. Again, look, I love the concept. I think there are tweaks to be made. I'm not too sure about the support role, but I think there are still very good options that you could be doing there. And it just seems like a real solid concept. And I just love how we have a lot of support for like these commandery, swarmy builds on the Empire, and you can kind of blend the 2 ideas together. It's going to be a lot of fun moving forward. Anyway, guys, that's the 3 lists we're going to have a look at today. Post more of your lists in the comment section, please. Also, we're going to continue the Summer of Jank videos. We'll talk more about some first edition lists up to the point where second edition comes out. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and Reddit, and I'll catch you guys later.